The two Buffalo police officers that you see essentially brutalizing a 75-year-old man in that video are free to go back to work. They're not facing any charges for that brutality. They're not facing any repercussions, consequences, nothing. They're back at work. And I want to tell you why, but first, got to give you context on what happened. That video was from 2020 during the George Floyd protests in Buffalo, New York. The elderly man, Martin Gugino, received a serious skull fracture as a result of that brutality. He spent quite a bit of time in the hospital as a result. And despite a 22-month-long investigation, the officers allegedly did not violate Buffalo Police Department policies, which kind of means that the Buffalo Police Department has policies that are problematic and should be changed. But doesn't seem like that's going to be happening here. So the ruling came in a 41-page report written by the New York arbiter. His name's Jeffrey Selchik. And try not to lose your mind as you hear his ridiculous reasoning for why these cops are now free to go, free to continue working as cops within the Buffalo Police Department. He writes that while Gugino might well have believed that he was engaged in some type of civil disobedience or perhaps acting out a role in some type of political theater, Gugino was definitely not an innocent bystander. Wait, hold on. How is he not innocent? He's at a protest. Americans have the right to assemble. Okay, that's protected as a constitutional right. He is not in any way posing a threat to the cops. He wasn't even approaching the cops. The cops just decided to shove him to the ground and fracture his skull. What exactly did he engage in that wasn't so innocent? Now, the elderly man's crime was apparently staying up past the city's 8 p.m. curfew and dispersal order. So that was the actual civil disobedience he was involved in. He didn't go back home when the curfew went into effect. And so apparently that gave the cops the right to shove him, again, a 75-year-old man, to the ground, fracturing his skull. Now, Selchik alleges that the serious injuries that this elderly man has sustained may also be his fault. It's his fault that the two cops decided to shove him to the ground. Gugino, after the force was applied to him, appears to have not been able to keep his balance for reasons that might well have had as much to do with the fact that he was holding objects in each hand or his advanced age. Do you notice a trend here? Do you notice a similarity in the kind of excuses that we hear for police who do decide that it's totally fine to brutalize people? The argument that we hear over and over again is it's not the cops' fault. It's actually the victim's fault. It wasn't it wasn't the cops' fault. It was George Floyd's fault for having drugs in his system. It wasn't Gugino, it wasn't the cops' fault. It was Gugino's fault because he was holding objects in his hand and he's elderly. It's his fault he's elderly. Selchik should be fired. Like, if we're having a discussion about criminal justice reform in this country, I'm getting real sick of essentially nothing more than early release, no rehabilitative programs, and cops essentially getting the ability to continue brutalizing people with no consequences. That's criminal justice reform? There has been nothing done to reform policing in this country. Some cities decided to cut police funding, which honestly, the thought was, let's cut police funding and actually reallocate the money to other programs, that would help rehabilitate people. But the effort to actually invest in rehabilitation, not really there. And more importantly, it's not good enough to just cut funding for cops. You have to reform the police departments across the country. You have to create an environment in which policing actually does protect and serve and doesn't brutalize innocent people or shoot and kill unarmed citizens. There's been nothing on that front, nothing substantive. I'm just keeping it real for you guys, okay? And for anyone who like celebrates simply cutting funding to police departments, that's not gonna fix the problems that we're experiencing in this society. Selchik should be fired. He won't be fired. But the fact that he's providing cover for what we witnessed in that video, the brutal behavior, the brutal treatment of a 75-year-old man. I mean, it tells you where the priorities are, and it is not about protecting and serving. It's about intimidating, it's about brutalizing, and it's about sending a message to people who want to speak truth to power. Hey, the cops will rough you up, they might even fracture your skull, and then they'll be back on the job. No consequences for them, all the consequences for you. For practicing your right to assemble, to protest, to speak truth to power. It's incredibly frustrating, and I really thought, that video is gonna change things. How could anyone watch that and provide excuses for what the police did? Finally, Selchik says, Gugino may also have been surprised when the officers used force to punish him away because he may have entertained the unfounded belief that the officers would let him interfere with the performance of their duties. Where did he interfere with the performance of their duties? I wanna watch the video again, so I'll give you guys time to cue it up. But while you do, let me just really emphasize for people who might be listening to the audio version of this show. He does nothing to interfere with the cops. He does nothing to pose a threat to the cops. He's standing there minding his own business when these cops do what you're about to hear and watch in this clip.
He is bleeding out of his ear. He's bleeding out of his ear. He's bleeding out of his ear. Get him medic.
He was bleeding out of his ear. There are dozens of cops there, dozens of cops against a 75-year-old activist. And somehow what happened to him was no problem. This is how things are supposed to work according to the Buffalo, New York Police Department.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.